Today, we are going to talk about something that so many people are afraid about, and that is nasty water. Moving to southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. I am a water connoisseur. I do not have my dream filtration system yet, but I am working on it. I have a little bit more debt to chunk out, and then I am getting one for sure. But at the same time, I will literally take drinks of water from creeks and live water, and I am going to explain to you guys why I do that. Okay, so let's give this scenario. We've tested your well, and it has come up positive for E. coli and coliform. And what you're thinking is, it's got poop and more poop. There's tons of poop in my water. And that actually may be incorrect. The research I just did was very, very interesting. But I do want to say this, we are seeing it so much this year because we're having crazy weather. When you get, I don't know, like a month's supply of rain in one day, your well is going to tell that story. There's going to be a lot of sediment, and in that sediment is E. coli and coliform. So I wanted to dig into it. I wanted to find out exactly what E. coli and coliform are, and I kind of didn't, okay? So I do know now that they are just different types of bacteria. But what I didn't realize in doing some research was that there are numerous beneficial strains of both E. coli and coliform. So here are some fun facts that I did not know that I think are super interesting. The overwhelming amount of E. coli strains are not only not dangerous, they're actually beneficial. They actually strengthen gut health. And what they do is they actually, because they're more prevalent, but they also populate quicker, and they literally kind of overpopulate your gut. And as they're doing that, they are protecting and blocking out the production of the more dangerous pathogens and bacteria. So that I thought was very, very interesting. Even the CDC says that most strains of E. coli are potentially beneficial and actually protect against other harmful types of bacteria. I didn't know. Everyone's always talking bad about E. coli. I thought it was all bad, but it's actually most good. It just blew my mind. Other interesting things. The beneficial strains of E. coli and coliform are so much more prevalent that it's actually very rare to have the bad types of E. coli and coliform. And sometimes that's not actually what's even getting you sick, and that the E. coli and the coliform can actually just be kind of like an indicative of other pathogens that may cause health problems. Same with coliform. So here's actually what also is super interesting. Before doing this research, I just assumed E. coli and coliform equaled feces, right? Feces in the water. And that is not true either. Now, I had a well guy tell me that coliform actually is like very commonly just like composted leaf matter. Any composted organic matter is pretty much gonna have coliform in it. Same with E. coli. I just assumed though that it meant feces. So if we go back to our original scenario, it makes sense that when we have these huge rains and there's tons of sediment in the water systems, in your casing, in your well, that there would be coliform and E. coli that would come up in these tests. I just think it's fascinating though that we are not taught any of this information. And here's what's also really interesting is, because I like to kind of push back on, kind of some of the like social norms we have about like what's gross and what's not gross. Because like you guys, I'm not like for gross stuff. Okay, wait, sometimes I am. But let's talk about this whole idea of gross. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you guys about what I think is gross. And I brought this up in the lagoon video. I think it's gross that it's legal in metros and customary to filter out raw sewage, treat it with chemicals, and then put it right back into the drinking supply. Like, that really grosses me out. Super, super grosses me out. But I will like straight cut my hand, drink out of a creek, and like, there might be a little giardia, you know, there might be a little bit of E. coli. Tastes great, probably some broken down leaf compost. But if you do it if you do it frequently and drink live water with all of those, the good, the bad, and the ugly, bacteria, and probably a little bit of pathogens, I find that I just like don't get sick. And when I travel, I don't get sick. Like, I don't have to treat my water. I can eat the lettuce in Mexico. I can brush my teeth with like the sink water in Mexico, go swimming, all of that, and I never get sick. And so I think there's something to building our microbiome through live water. So that is my personal opinion, but everyone has to find their comfort zone. If you, especially like if you have new experience with live water, you're like, your water's alive? Like, what are you talking about? I don't want my water to be alive, okay? I get it. Well, we can get your water to not be alive. There's a couple ways, a couple things we can do. So let's say a well tests positive, right? Testing positive is a negative. Then we can shock the well. So shocking the well is literally just bleaching the whole system. In fact, you run so much bleach, not only are you going down through the casing and getting like the bulk of the water that's sitting, but you really are putting a good amount so that you run it for a while and it smells like bleach for a while, like a good chunk of time. So that is one thing that you can do. Here's what's crazy. We've been having storms that are so big, shocking the well one time hasn't worked. We have shocked a well up to 3 times and it was still dirty. So at that point, we put on a filtration system, and I've had it done both ways. I want to admit I have had a seller do it. Most of the time, it's something that the buyer does because it's like, these are all emotional things, but kind of what you're saying when you come in, buyer, I want you to understand is you're like, ew, gross. You've been drinking that water? That water is nasty. And you're nasty too. Not really, but kinda. That's kinda what you're saying. Now, I totally get it though, because you're like, no, really, like that water tested positive. So negotiations can go both ways. I do often recommend and even have buyers offer to put in the filtration system because it's gonna be theirs, right? The previous seller didn't die from the water. And that's kind of like from their perspective, it's like, come on, I've been drinking this water for like 30 years and I've never been sick. And now you come in and so you've never had live water, but like you're gonna push that on me. So, you know, it's one of those delicate back and forths, and we can have that discussion when it comes time to negotiation. So I want to recap those options. There is shocking a well, which is bleaching your well. Sometimes bleach is not enough, and then we need to move on to filtration. And oh my goodness, there is so many options for filtration. I feel like we could just sit here and have a whole other video's worth. In fact, I might do that someday. I love water filters. Even though, okay, you guys, flip side, I'm like drinking mud puddles, but overall, see, those are like my you know how people do the jabs? I drink mud puddles. Same diff. I would literally rather inject a mud puddle than a jab. But we won't get into like the very specialized filtration systems that there are. But, you know, in general, there's like $20 to $40 sediment filters. Those are super good regardless. There is then the UV filtration, and that is the most thorough. Like if you do not want living water, use the UV. It is probably the best type of filtration in terms of like literally taking out all the bacteria. There's really been an advancement in charcoal filters. I think charcoal filters are pretty cool. We do have Berkey, right? We have a Berkey. We don't really use it anymore, but at our last property we did, because the water there, it seemed it didn't taste right to me. So we had a Berkey on that one. But yeah, there's so many options. You can do them inline. They can be kind of externally out of your plumbing system. So many ways to do them. And I do think that filtering water is a good idea. Now, once again, we get into what you think is gross and what I think is gross. And I admit, I don't want my water to be chock full of pesticides and herbicides. It probably is. I mean, I love our neighbors, but yeah, they put some nasty stuff right above where our well is. So that is one reason why I want super good, thorough filtration system. But also just the rain is super dirty and gross. There's so much pollution, whether you think it's geoengineering or not, the planes are really gunking up the skies, and then that rain is falling. There is just so much gross stuff. I mean, our water's crazy acidic now. So I really love water filtration systems that look at the cohesive water thing. That is pretty cool. Some people think it's absolute rubbish, but I believe you can actually look at the crystalline form of water, and see if it's fragmented or if it's cohesive and whole. And I admit that I do have a little gadget to make my water cohesive. And it just, when I drink it, I feel a little smile inside. So that's my science and how I know it's working. And yeah, so I'd water that's not crazy acidic, crazy filled with chemicals. And I personally think that we should be concerned about too much heavy metals in our water. So for all of those reasons, I am super into filtration. Bacteria is just not something that I worry about. And I have to admit, I'm excited that I got to do this video and find out that there's a whole other layer of the science that we should all know, is that the majority of E. coli is not only not harmful, it's beneficial, and it protects your microbiome against the pathogens and the E. coli strains that are dangerous to our health. How come the health department doesn't ever tell me that? One more thing on the health department and when we do test water. So when we test water, we do like to have it sent out to a very high-tech lab that is going to look at safety levels of all the E. coli strains and the coliform. Because what happens with most of our health departments around here is they just test positive or negative, and every test comes up positive, because there's E. coli. It's not just in feces, it's in soil, it's in life, it's in the environment. So unless you're literally have just totally inert, bleached water, which is kind of what municipalities are kind of pushing towards, then yeah, that's gonna come up in your water. We have never tested our water, but I actually would be interested, and I would be interested to see what heavy metals come up. There's definitely a history of mining in Missouri, and then that can lead to heavy metals in the water. And the good thing about heavy metals is they're, for the most part, incredibly easy to filter out. You could literally use a sediment filter and filter out a lot of heavy metals. Okay, you guys, when you are ready to make the move here, we will talk about your well, your water filtration. We can talk about rain catchment. We can talk about all the different stuff with water. We can help you get a pond built, and you can take little sips of it and you will never be sick again. Just joking, YouTube. I know I probably can't say that. I'm not a doctor, and don't drink your pond water. But Joel Salatin, kind of gross actually, he literally takes sips of his cow trough water, and he says he never gets sick because he does that. That's next level. Even I don't drink the trough water. All right, you guys, until next time, as always, information is in the description. Give me a call. I usually answer my phone. If I don't, I'll call you right back. And And I also like emails, texts, and all that good stuff. And we'll talk about the next best phase of your life, which I bet is going to be moving to Southern Missouri. And it definitely has been for us. All right, you guys, until next time, bye.